In our spotlight this week, we are in the book of Nehemiah, picking up where we left off last time in the book of Nehemiah. And we saw in Nehemiah chapter 2 where Nehemiah had gone to Jerusalem and he inspects the walls and he comes in and he starts to then tell the people what's going on, what needs to be done. He rallies them to come and to build the wall, to get this finished, get it done. And so we saw that they set their mind or their hands to this good work. So the people said, after Nehemiah told them, the situation and what they need to do, they said, okay, let's go. Let's rise up and build. And so they set their hands to do the work. And in Nehemiah chapter 3, really what we have after chapter 2, when they say let's go, chapter 3 is a list of all the people, or at least that we're told here, who helped work on the wall. We're not going to read this. You can look through it, read it yourself if you want to, but really we just have a lot of names and the peoples and the families and the leaders and the households. And what you see throughout all of this and this whole list of names is, it'll tell you that so-and-so was working on this section of wall, and by him was somebody was working on this section of wall, and the next person, a whole bunch of people, this whole long list through chapter 3, verses 1 through 32, all the people, the houses, the families, the people who took a section, and they all got to work together. And what I love about this, and what this example I think shows us today, is a reminder of how the Lord's church works the same way. That we are all to be serving the Lord, living for the Lord together, working as the church, working in His kingdom, working in the vineyard of this world, trying to preach the gospel, trying to encourage one another. But we've all got a part to share in that. We've all got work to do. As Paul said in Ephesians 4, that the body grows up in love when each part does its share, when each part is working properly. And what we see here, we see the people who go in this together. I mean, if it was one or two people trying to do all the work of rebuilding the walls, that would be extremely hard. It would take even longer. It would be discouraging, really, if there was only if you were those few people who were choosing to work on the wall. Well, it's going to be discouraging to see all the other people not helping. Well, the same thing in the church is when only a few are active in the work of the church, but then everybody else is just kind of standing or sitting around, not really involved, not really doing anything. That's discouraging. And so what I'm encouraged by when I read this list of names is it's more than just a list of names. It's activity. It's these brethren being active, helping together to get the work done. And then we come to chapter 4. And chapter 4 is another lesson about, I think, this togetherness. Really, there's two things we can get from chapter 4. One is trusting in God even when there's fear of oppression and when the oppression is happening and so on. And trusting in God, that's part of chapter 4. But really connecting to chapter 3 and our focus today is I really want to look at their togetherness still when facing obstacles, challenges, oppression. I do want to read chapter 4, if you'll read along with me or listen along. In chapter 4, verse 1, that it happened when Sanballat heard that they were rebuilding the wall, that he was furious and very indignant and began to mock the Jews. And he spoke before his brethren and the army of Samaria and said, "What are these feeble Jews doing? Will they fortify themselves? Will they offer sacrifices? Will they complete it in a day? Will they revive the stones from the heaps of rubbish, stones that are burned?" Now Tobiah the Ammonite was beside him, and he said, "Whatever they build, even if a fox goes up on it, it's going to break down their stone wall." And so now they've got the enemy doesn't like what they're doing. So they start trying to mock them and to make fun of them, to ridicule them, to put them down, to try to make them feel bad so they'll give up. But look what Nehemiah does. He says in verse 4, Nehemiah said, "Hear, O our God, for we are despised. Turn their reproach on their own heads and give them as plunder to a land of captivity. Do not cover their iniquity and do not let their sin be blotted out from before you, for they have provoked you to anger before the builders. So Nehemiah teaches us the first thing we got to do in handling challenges, obstacles, oppression, enemies is take it to God. Pray to God about it. But then as he goes on, he says, so we built the wall, and the entire wall was joined together up to half its height, for the people had a mind to work. There's another part of this. The people had a mindset, a determination to work. Remember back in chapter 2, they set their hands to do this good work. That is, they set their hearts, they set their minds. They had a mind to work and to get this done. And even though they're starting to face this opposition and oppression, they stuck with it together. He says, we built the wall. We, together, even though this opposition was happening, we continued to build the wall. We joined it together to half its height because the people had a mind to work together, is the idea that I want to focus on from this chapter. But then it goes on, verse 7, that when Sanballat and Tobiah, the Arabs, the Ammonites, and the Ashdodites heard that the walls of Jerusalem were being restored and the gaps were beginning to be closed, that they became very angry. Oh boy, so now their enemies are angry, not happy at all. So they conspired, all of them together, to come and attack Jerusalem and create confusion. So now it's more than just making fun of the Jews. Now they know that a physical threat of attack is imminent, that it could come at any time. Verse 9, nevertheless, we made our prayer to our God because of them, and because of them we set a watch against them day and night. They prayed to God together, and then they started planning and acting and to protect one another. Let's read the rest of this. Then Judah said, the strength of the laborers is failing, and there is so much rubbish that we are not able to build the wall. So there is a concern. There was a lot of work still to do, and it's hard, and they're not able, with what they have, maybe to rebuild the wall. So there's some concern. Maybe they can't finish it. And our adversary said, they will neither know nor see anything till we come into their midst and kill them and cause the work to cease. And so it was when the Jews who dwelt near them came, they told us 10 times, from whatever place you turn, they will be upon us. So there's this threat of being killed, that these enemies are so angry about the work that is being done in Jerusalem and building the walls again, that they're angry. They're going to kill the Jews to get them to stop. And then there's so much work still to be done. There's a lot of work. They're being threatened. What are they going to do? Well, let's look what they did. Nehemiah says, therefore I positioned men behind the lower parts of the wall at the openings, and I set the people according to their families with their swords, their spears, and their bows. And I looked and arose and said to the nobles, to the leaders, and to the rest of the people, do not be afraid of them. Remember the Lord, great and awesome, and fight for your brethren. So remember the Lord, put trust in God Almighty, and fight for your brethren, for your sons, for your daughters, for your wives, for your houses. And it happened when our enemies heard that it was known to us and that God had brought their plot to nothing, that all of us returned to the wall, every one to his work. So it was from that time that half my servants worked at construction, while the other half held the spears and shields and bows and wore armor. And the leaders were behind all the house of Judah. Those who built on the wall and those who carried burdens loaded themselves so that with one hand they worked at construction and the other hand held a weapon. Every one of the builders had his sword girded at his side as he built, and the one who sounded the trumpet was beside me. Then I said to the nobles, the rulers, and the rest of the people, the work is great and extensive, and we are separated far from one another on the wall. Wherever you hear the sound of the trumpet, rally to us there. Our God will fight for us. So he labored in the work, and half the men held the spears from daybreak until the stars appeared. And at the same time I also said to the people, let each man and his servant stay at night in Jerusalem, that they may be our guard by night and a working party by day. So neither I, my brethren, my servants, nor the men of the guard who followed me took off our clothes, except that everyone took them off for washing. What I love about this chapter, and I think what we see Nehemiah, yes, something can be learned from all of this about really being a leader. Nehemiah is a great example of a leader taking charge and helping the people do whatever needs to get done. And part of that leadership, that plan that Nehemiah knew was we've got to look out for each other. We've got to help each other. We've got to fight for one another. And even the idea of the trumpet, Nehemiah says, I know we're all going to be spread apart working on different pieces of the wall. So we're going to have a trumpet, and wherever you hear if you hear the trumpet go off somewhere, you get there as fast as you can to help fight and protect your brethren, your people, your city, trusting that God is with us. God will fight for us. Is that not true of us today as Christians in the church and the work of the Lord? That in a sense, if you will, we're all kind of spread out in our daily lives, doing our own things and work and in our homes and out and about and with entertainment or whatever the case may be. And Satan's going to try attacking any of us, all of us. And we need to be ready to blow the trumpet for help. Blow the trumpet asking our brethren, please come help me. I need help. I'm being attacked by Satan. I need you to pray with me. I need you to study with me. I need you to talk with me. I need you to listen. What we see in this idea, chapters 3 and 4, their work on the wall, is they're working together. They're all doing their part in the work. They're all mindful of one another, to protect one another, to fight for one another, to fight together against the enemy. We can learn so much, and I think it's an encouragement to me, and I hope to all of us, to see this togetherness. That Nehemiah led the people in this togetherness, working together, fighting together, and we need to have that same togetherness in the church today. So let's be encouraged by that. Let's make sure our name is on the list of those active. Let's make sure we are fighting for our brethren, and let's make sure if we need help that we call on one another and know that God is with us. Praying to God, trusting in God, setting our mind and hearts on God and His work, and doing it together. God bless.